See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify, get helpful stats, and all the support you need to sound your very best.
This is Jed MacKay, and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is the High Priest Rebecca, and I am doing a solo podcast to try and get us a little bit more closer to being up to date. So first, apologies from myself and Ray that we've not managed to get together to cover the two most recent issues of Vengeance of the Moon Knight. So that's issue 7 and issue 8. But there's been a lot of issues, and each time we try and do it, we get hit with a new one. So we were going to record today, and when another issue came up, we decided that instead of just pushing it off again and having extra issues to try and catch up with, I would do a solo one and try and catch us up with the Blood Hunt tie-ins, the end of the Blood Hunt issues, and hopefully when we manage to record together again, we will tackle either Vengeance of the Moon Knight 9 or Phases of the Moon Knight 1 or whatever else that comes up in that time. So buckle up. It's probably going to be quite a short podcast. It's a lot harder when there's no banter, Ray asking me questions, us discussing mysteries. Also, for one of the issues, I would say there's no real mystery. And hopefully I do it justice. And apologies, and hopefully we'll be back to normal service very soon. So without further ado, let's have a look at Vengeance of the Moon Knight 7, a Blood Hunt tie-in. Written by Jed MacKay, art by Alessandro Cappuccio, colour by Rachelle Rosenberg, letters by VC's Cory Petit, and in this case the main cover is David Paratore, variant covers by Steven Segovia and Rain Barredo, and a Marvel vs. Alien variant by Mike Mayhew, which I believe is a pretty cool variant. Issue 7 is called Incarnate, and we'll just do the summary from the comic to get us back to date, because it's been a couple of months still since you've read it, probably, if you're up to date. Following Mark Spector's heroic death, the Midnight Mission took up his vow of protecting those unable to protect themselves. A gargantuan task, especially in the face of a seemingly eternal night that has descended upon Earth as the moon god, KHONSHU, was locked away in an Asgardian prison. The eternal night has allowed vampires to run rampant, attacking all whom they encounter. Reese, Soldier, and 8-Ball have been patrolling the streets, fighting off vampires and sheltering whatever survivors they can find in the Midnight Mission. Meanwhile, Hunters Moon and Tigra have been recruited by the Avengers, trademark, to formulate a way to fight the vampires en masse. Together, the two of them have brainstormed a desperate plan to try to turn the tides. Now all that remains is to see their gamble through and hope it pays off. Now, this issue sits very easily alongside Blood Hunt number 4 and Fist of KHONSHU 0, in that there's not a huge amount of story going on here. So the story basically is they free KHONSHU, KHONSHU resurrects Mark. We've been expecting this for a long time. I think ever since we found out there was something funky with resurrection and KHONSHU being in prison, and then obviously once Mark died. So for all of us, this is an issue we've been waiting for. We have an inkling, we know it's happening because of Blood Hunt 4 and Fist of KHONSHU. But I do appreciate that when Marvel is doing these things, you do not have to have bought the event or the special issue, and you're going to get the story. So if all that's on your pull list is Vengeance the Moon Knight, you're going to get this. So what else do we normally talk about? The cover. I've only got the main cover in front of me. It is a bunch of, I guess, Asgardian soldiers. I don't know who Moon Knight and Tigra are squaring off again on the cover. And Asgard in the background, looking very pretty on a diagonal. Says it's a Blood Hunt tie-in. You can't miss that. There's another little head in the corner. A little bit of a mystery for who they have with them, but pretty quickly solved. What else do we want to say about it? So I don't think it's escaped anyone's observation that in recent months, years, we've lost a lot of iconic comic creators. So a lot of our issues that we're reading have got in memoriams of whether it's colorists, artists, writers. This one's a pretty big one for us. This is Don Perlin, who is, of course, co-creator of Moon Knight and also, big contributor to a lot of the comics we love, Defenders, Ghost Rider, Werewolf by Night. And I mean, I appreciate that they do these heads up, but I think if you're going to have one, like this one's just quite special, right? Because anyone who's worked on Moon Knight is going to be a special one to have on a Moon Knight issue. We'll get into it with issue 8 because that has a couple of important ones as well. But it's hard to think that and obviously it's very sad news about Don Perlin. Good long life though, 90s, 95? No, I don't know. I can't do maths. I think 95. If Ray was here, he would absolutely tell me the maths, but you get my unpreparedness. Because we only concocted this plan for me to do solos very recently. So I'm not going to go very much into the storyline. Let's do some of the big beats are. We were wondering who Soldier would be, like who they've been recruiting to help them to free KHONSHU. We get a very quick answer that it's Raqqa. That's cool because that's who you want to break into an Asgardian prison. A little bit surprised that, I kind of thought they might get the Asgardians to release him, but you know what? This works. It's nice. Second of all, as I think I said with Fist of KHONSHU 0, but this to a lesser extent because that was more of a special issue where it was like 1 page per person. The art continues to be gorgeous. The details for Asgard, the little dragon architecture, the knot of this earthiness, all with the undercurrent of Rachelle Rosenberg's rich reds and oranges and golds. I mean, they actually have a sense of gold in the comic. Both Hunter's Moon armor, obviously, but Asgard just has this very huge sense about it. Obviously, we get a little bit of what's going on with Blood Hunt for people not reading that. But we get to see Tigra, Hunter's Moon, and Raqqa head off to do their little mission. And find out that this is the Avengers that sent them on the mission. Clea Strange sent them to Asgard. And they didn't ask about where the plan came from, which is cool. Okay, so this is why they didn't ask Asgard. You see, I'd forgotten already. They're doing this under Asgardians' noses, so to speak. I'm sure that will go down well. Um, so the prison is pretty funny. It's like a big tower, and I find the door lock funny because you would think amongst Asgard it would be some real intricate thing, and it does look it. It's beautiful round door, very hobbity, with decoration around the outside. But then there's this big sort of thing just with normal looking chains. I think we can assume they're not normal. And Hunter's Moon approaches and tells KHONSHU through the door that he's come to get him. And I like that KHONSHU refers to him as my loving son, as I guess in opposition to Mark. And he's kind of a bit dismissive about them being able to like open the door. And that's when we get the full reveal of Rekka. And you get the dialogue's very funny there. This is the plan. We're going to free an insane moon god, and we've enlisted a supervillain to do it. Now, I mean, look, we love Rekka, right? We love 8-Ball, who was previously a villain. We love Rekka. We love street level villains who are very focused on maybe one skill they have. So I think we should separate out between supervillains who are genocidal and people like Rekka. But it's quite nice because his colors of purple and green offset some of the reds and oranges, and yeah, obviously Tigra's very orange and ginger. Hunter's Moon has got the gold and black and whites, and so the green and the purple is a very different coloring. And they let him have at the door. You get Tigra being a little bit thoughtful about the man she loves and how he died. And so Rekka does get a very funny line about I wish Thor was here, just so I could see the look on his stupid face. And he does, in fact, manage to crack the door open. And we get what is a spectacular splash page of KHONSHU emerging. And up in the right-hand corner is the big full moon. KHONSHU's cloak is swirling as if it looks like the night. And then underneath him are these incredible sunset colors coloring Asgard, the dragons, the architecture. It's just, and all KHONSHU is saying, "I am free!" Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! My KHONSHU impersonation there. If you ever wanted to recruit me as KHONSHU. And then the next page is another big splash page again, but this time totally different. This is very green and yellow and nights. So it's like very dark and focusing in on the bird skull. Because Tigra, they all go flying. They're like falling off the edge. He catches them in this enormous hand. Again, calls him my beloved son here. You're safe in your father's hand. There's a big ankh swirling around. And they're no longer in Asgard. KHONSHU has brought them to their realm, his seat of power. And says, you've visited here with my other son. And so immediately her thoughts go to Mark. And it's like, KHONSHU's almost teasing them a little. He walks them through to the big chamber with all the previous Moon Knights. And this one's, again, stunning in blues and whites and so much detail on the statues. And, KHONSHU also recognizes the danger to the world. And so he's gathered all of his fists together because every person on Earth is now a traveler of the nights, because just in case you forgot, Blood Hunt is all about the sun disappearing or being blacked out so that vampires can run rampant. And it's quite interesting because I'm looking at this page now where he's walking them into the chamber of the Iron Fists, and you can see some of the details have been done with fingerprints, especially on the bottom left-hand side. And that's really interesting. Like in the top top right, so bottom left, top right, you can actually see thumb or fingerprints have actually been used to create some of that effect. You can get these two massive pyramids at the end, one facing up, one facing down. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So they don't have to, so because these iron fists, well, look at me, because these moon knights, he's referring to them as fists in my defense, because they're zombies effectively, or they have no blood, they're safe from the vampires. But now Reese gets frustrated. He's like, I don't want to hear about this. Like, are you going to resurrect Mark, or is he like the rest of these dead fists? Is he going to be a zombie? And KHONSHU suddenly, I mean, now we get sassy KHONSHU. Do you doubt me? Do you believe I would fail my son? That I would resurrect him mindless? And then we turn the page and another big splash screen. No, Mark Spector is my Moon Knight, and he will lead them. And here we go. Mark coming down the stairs, a sword in each hand, the new Cappuccio armor on display. He's a bit chunky. And he's going to lead the armies of the other Moon Knights, and they are offering him their swords in kind of respect. And he looks pretty kick-ass, cloak swirling behind him. But this is, is he coming back normal? Is he not coming back normal? What's going on? And so in this moment, we switch to the best moment in the issue for me. Mark and Tigra's reunion. So, first of all, they acknowledge each other. Then they start running, and he drops his weapons. And they talk about how dangerous the life is, how unfair it is. All the joy, all the pain, all the loss. And then about how it's all done in the hope that there's one moment that makes it all worth it. And as they're running towards each other, they're getting closer. Mark lifts his mask, and you see it's definitely him. In case there was any doubt. And then you turn the page and you get... So if anyone is ever wanting to buy me a page of original art, this is the one. The Mark Greer kiss. It's beautiful. They're both crying. Her hair's swirling. So you've got all the orange on her side. Her big tiger tail is wrapped around his upper arm as they embrace, hand in his hair. His cloak is swirling around them. It's lovely. And it's a little bit odd for an action comic, essentially, which I would still say Moon Knight is, to allow a moment, or allow 2-3 pages to just let this bit of character development come out. But, again, all strength to Jed, who, has been building up this relationship, been building up the characters, not so we almost forget Marlene, but so we almost forget Marlene, right? This is the relationship we're rooting for right now, and the one that makes sense. And a slightly softer little chat, and then Mark's like, right, let's get to work. What's the plan? And interestingly, KHONSHU's here to help with the plan. I mean, not interestingly, but I don't know if you often see him strategize. You can all let me know if that's true or not. It's not how I often see him, but it's been a while, but it's kind of cool. So he's telling us what's happening. You each are going to lead a cadre of Moon Knights straight into the battle. You're going to join them. You're going to show that KHONSHU protects all travelers by night. The Avengers are fighting the architect of this atrocity, which is, so that's cool. And we get to see that in their comics and in Blood Hunt. Tigre wants to stay with Mark, but KHONSHU's like, no, you're going to lead someone. So he's properly embraced them as his crew, the KHONSHU crew. And then Rekka's I want to go and get some money. And Mark's like, hey, I didn't take you for a chicken heart. You can tell that's not the word he wanted to use. If I can't remember if we can swear on this podcast, but it was clearly chicken something else. And, Mark stands up to KHONSHU and says the Wrecker's going to stand with us. And Wrecker's kind of going, I didn't actually say that. But, Mark seems to be continuing on his path of helping rehabilitate these villains, former villains or still villains, but willing to join a good cause. And then KHONSHU scolds him for saying KHONSHU. And he says, can you not even say it now? Can you not say even now? And you get this page just of Mark with little eyes sparkling. It's like, Mark says, thank you for my life, father. And then KHONSHU rallies them to war. Greer and Mark say their goodbyes again, says, you better come back. I've only got one resurrection scheme. It's been used up. Mark's like, no, I mean it. I'll come back. And you see them each leading their little group of Moon Knights and heading off to New York to fight. And the last thing Mark says is, nothing will stop me coming back for you. And we get the to be concluded in Blood Hunt 5 and Vengeance of the Moon Knight 8. Now, of course, you've all read this by now. So, right, so I'm not going to talk about it much. I am just going to pop over to Facebook and grab Mario's feedback for this issue. So Mario said, anyone who's read Blood Hunt 4 will find no surprises in this issue, as it covers much of the same ground and indeed reuses much of the relevant dialogue, albeit from slightly different camera angles. Indeed, one of the twists in this issue, the reveal of the villain Soldier spoke within issue 3, would likely have had a greater impact if it had come out before the Blood Hunt issue, but I suppose the vagaries of scheduling made it impractical. Hence the question confronting the regular reader is not what Tigra and Hunter's Moon did to free KHONSHU, but what happened afterwards, as we get a lovely reunion scene between Mark and Greer that neatly ties up her character arc in this miniseries. And of course, their reunion is short-lived because there's still the whole vampire invasion to deal with. But that's only a minor inconvenience at best. Moon Knight is back, baby. Art-wise, I must confess to preferring Alessandro Cappuccio's take on the jailbreak to Pepe Larraz's version. I missed his Eldritch Shadows, and it's great to see them again. If I had any quibbles regarding this issue, it's that the Deadpool parody ad really breaks the flow of the story, especially in Comixology's guided view, which is how I read these days, and that we don't get any explanation for the new suit other than that's how he came back. I'd take a half point off for the former, an additional 10th off for the latter, giving us 9.4 out of 10. What can I say? I'm a sucker for sappy reunions. I mean, I'm giving it a 9.5 anyway, and my detraction is also for the Deadpool ad, which is hideous. It's a parody ad of the old pie ads they used to have in old Marvel comics. It's Captain America and Deadpool, and it's just horrible, and as Mario says, it breaks things up. You can't escape it. It could have gone in the end of the comic. I hate it, basically, and there's no need. And let's hope we never have to get that again. So that's issue 7, and I haven't gone to Instagram, I haven't gone to Discord to get any other feedback, so apologies for that. We will make sure we get to any feedback when it's me and Ray back together again, but I'm being a little bit lazy and just going straight for the podcast, the Facebook page. Now, before we start issue 8, Avengers of the Moon Knight 8, which was on sale on the 14th of August, we're catching up here. Just a couple of things. Obviously, Phases of the Moon Knight came out. We're not going to touch that until we can talk about it together, because I think that was out this week, so we've got a little bit more of wiggle room. Mario on the Facebook page has AIPTcomics.com has a preview of the Moon Knight Annual, which is the Infinity Watch story. with Colleen Knight and stuff. We've had solicits for Fist of KHONSHU 2. The other important bit of news is that Lena has appeared on the Indie Comic Spotlight podcast, which she is as part of a series of episodes that the system will be doing, talking about DID representation, and in the comic book series L, in brackets S, close brackets, written by Kid Toussaint and drawn by Aveline Stokart, which they say is one of the best, if not possibly the best, fictional representation of DID they've seen. So I very much recommend you listen to it, and please use the Facebook group. Please come to Discord if you prefer Discord. We chat things about as they come up, but also, it's just nice to have people along, and you're always welcome, and there's a lot of information, and it can move quite quickly. So if you want the most up-to-date stuff, somebody probably would have posted it. I mean, I haven't posted anything recently, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind on news. And a lot of it's just been... Oh, sorry, there is a bit of news. Moon Knight will allegedly be in an episode of What If in season 3. That's the only news I know of. So what I'm going to do now is launch into issue 8, which I don't think we have any feedback for, or I'm going to assume we don't. And again, Ray can correct me. So this time we have some more tributes. The first one is, Steve Ditko. This is not related to when Steve Ditko... this is because he was inducted into the 2024 Disney Legends thing at D23, which was in August, earlier in August, like the week that the issue came out. We all know Steve Ditko, not much more to say about him. It probably would find it extremely weird to find himself in a modern Marvel comic, but that's about all we need to say about that. It's a nice page. And then we have an in memoriam to Rachelle, one of the Marvel filmmakers, who helped, production designer who helped design the MCU. So that is, it's a shame, but it's kind of interesting, that we've had, that we're not just limiting this to comics people, right? Because it is a huge impact. A lot of people do know things from MCU now, so that's interesting. So, issue 8, Vengeance of the Moon Knight, is called 3 Moments. The summary. Following Mark Spector's heroic death, the Midnight Mission found themselves without a leader in the midst of a violent vampire invasion. Huntress Moon and Tigra made a desperate attempt to break the Asgardian moon god KHONSHU from his prison cell in Argo. That's interesting. The Asgardian moon god KHONSHU? Okay. I never read these summaries before I read the comics, so that's an interesting one. Anyway, to bust out of the Asgardian jail, they needed help of an Asgardian crowbar, ably provided by Rekka, a member of the Wrecking Crew. Apologies for missing out that detail in the last issue. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Reese, Soldier, and 8-Ball have been patrolling the streets, fighting off vampires, and sheltering whatever survivors they can find in the Midnight Mission. But their resources are finite, and the night is long. How much longer can they keep the Midnight Mission standing? So, writer, Jed MacKay. Artist, Devmalya Pramanik. I apologise for pronunciations. Colour artist, Rachelle Rosenberg. Letterer, VC's Cory Petit. Cover artist, David Paratore. There's variant cover artists, Alessandro Cappuccio and Rachelle Rosenberg, sorry. And the main cover is Moon Knight and I guess Shroud in the other Moon Knight outfit. Anyway, it seems a bit not relevant to the actual article, so I'm just going to move on, but it's very pretty. I've only just read this one, so this is going to be maybe a slightly less meta overview. We start with Soldier and Reese, and they're wondering what kind of power levels the Midnight Mission has. And they don't really know. They're fighting, they're doing their best. Dr. Sturman comes out with 2 bags of blood for them and says, you haven't been feeding. We ran out of blood bags. Reese is properly grossed out about drinking the blood of someone she's talking to. And says, you sure you didn't draw too much blood? And she's like, I'm a doctor, Reese. I mean, she's a psychiatrist, right? Which is still a doctor, but not necessarily the blood drawing type of doctor. She seems to have both arms bandaged, so I wonder if she drew one from each arm. Again, you're not really, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Who knows? But they need the blood. They take the blood. Reese comments on the fact that she had been vegan before. And they go out to fight again. And we get the Reese dialogue. That's thought bubble as such. That's when it happened in all the horror. On a night when I thought I couldn't get any more scared. A moment of absolute terror. From the night I was turned, I've been afraid of this moment. And the sun blasts through the perma-night that New York had been plunged under. And you can see they're terrified. They like get in the shade. They think they're going to burn up, and then realize that they're not burning, and the sun is not affecting them. And as Reese says, the moment of terror turns into a moment of joy. But also, which I quite liked, and this is not something I would have thought of, so props to Jed. Killing vampires in the sun seems a little bit more grotesque than at night, because you can see all the blood and etc. etc. And she calls it. She said it looks a little bit obscene. Blow up the truck now, and so they're gonna this vampire's gonna blow up the truck. Moment of terror thing. Someone stabs this vampire that's going to blow the truck. Right, we get a sword we recognise from issue 7 straight through the head of the vampire that was about to blow up a truck. And Reese says once again, a moment of terror, a moment of joy, and we get Chunky Mark with his big swords, and Reese and Hunter's Moon have returned from Asgard. A moment of awe. And the costume looks great. Big swirling cloak. They've all got big swirling cloaks apart from Reese. It was a big swirling tail instead. It works. And it's very sweet. Soldier's like, is it real this time? Reese, you got to tell me, is it real? And Reese is like, it is. It's him. They did it. He's back. He's killing this vampire. They brought him home. And they joined the fight. And so from the last issue where we had the Tigra Mark reunion, now we get the Reese Mark reunion. Do we hug now or something, says Reese. And yes. And we get the sort of paternal hug from him this time. He doesn't take his mask off for this one, but they are a little bit more mid-fight. And then makes a joke about what the hell are you wearing, because of course she's in the Mr. Knight outfitty kind of thing. He thanks them for looking after the mission. He thanks everyone for helping bring him back. Soldier's like, we owe the Wrecker a lot of money. Mark's like, don't worry, he'll get it. If we pay him off, he won't be knocking over banks for a little while. So again, we at some point we're going to deal with what happened with all the money and things like that. Reese is like, did you fix the sky? She finds out Blade was involved. And then Soldier's like, what's next? Next, we take our territory back, and you see the whole gang. Bar 8-Ball, we're coming to him. Very nice bit of really nice oranges and blacks and white here. So it's I love that Rachelle, even with the different artist, the color pulls it all together. So I mean, there's differences in the art, of course there are. We're all very used to Cappuccio. I'm sure he's all of our favorites. But I don't mind the art here. I think he's done a good job. Pramanik. I'm not going to go back and look how he spell the name. And, you know, it's funny because Reese says, like, did did you fix the sky? And Mark's like, I don't really know. I just turned up and jumped into a fight. But so they're going back to take out their territory. We have another terrible advert, but it's not as bad as the last one because it's just, I don't know, for some reason it's not as bad. And then we get this really cool page of them taking back their streets, and it's kind of done like a sun on one side with Mark's eye, like part of his face and his eye, and then coming out as rays. I would say a moon, but you don't really have moon rays as such. I'm sure you do. They take back their streets, they look after their people, they punish their enemies, and I like unusual paneling, and this is unusual paneling, and we don't see it as much. We don't see this that often, so that's a nice treat for me. So they're securing their streets, and they are marking them with the moon sigil. And that's kind of interesting because it's always a cool little thing, better than carving moons in people's faces. Reese is talking to, and then we go back to the midnight mission, and it's dark with oranges coming in, and Reese is sort of saying it's hard to believe it's over, hard to believe he's back, and talks about seeing the sun. And Mark comes in and says, I hope you still got time to see me. And she's like, I reckon the Avengers have forgiven you. You don't need the sort of Avengers mandated therapy. And he says, no, I'd like to continue talking to you. And then we get to the important bit, right? What has 8-Ball been doing? He's got food, and he's back at the midnight mission with all the food. And he's like, the sun came back, and the vampires are gone. So he's missed all of that big action bit. But he's come back with food, and he's like, hey, Moon Knight, ah! And then he's like, no, I've been helping, as Moon Knight kind of grabs his arm. I'm on the midnight mission now. I'm a good guy. And you can almost feel, and Mark is bringing his face so close to him, and he just says, good job. And it's just like when you call a dog good boy. Like you can imagine 8-Ball's little face under the mask. And then he says, "Look, I need to go speak to the I need a minute with the mission." And he starts to give Reese an order, and then he says, "No, actually, you guys have been doing this. You don't need me to tell you what to do. Greer, I just need a minute. I'll be back." And she's like, "You better be." And he goes. He goes into his original, his big chair. His like, hi, I'm Moon Knight. What's your problem, chair? And this time he walks up to the statue of KHONSHU, and he says, "No, I don't need to talk to you, mission, just yet, but I need to talk to the other one. What do you want, KHONSHU?" And KHONSHU says, "You know what I want, Mark. I want the insult against me avenged. You have to kill the pretender, the imposter, the false priest. You have to kill Moon Knight." Now, this is where I need Mario, really. Or I always need Ray. And I think it's a shame we're not getting to talk about this one, because what does he mean by you have to kill Moon Knight? What is going on here? I have no clue. I fully admit I read this an hour ago, and I have absolutely no idea, but I am dying to know. So for me, it's done its job, right? It's a hook into what's going to come next. What we're going to get, because Vengeance of the Moon Knight is ending, and then we're moving on to Fist of KHONSHU. And I've not looked at any of the solicits for that in detail, so I am excited for what's next. Next issue, Vengeance of the Moon Knight, I think is the last one, number 9, on sale on the 11th of September. I'm not going to say 9/11, because for me it's 11/9, but 9/11 for American dates. And so it won't be too long. And in between, we've had Phases of the Moon Knight. That was out last week of August. So I would very much hope that all the issues that we've had getting me and Ray together will be solved soon, and we will definitely be back together for issue 9 of Vengeance of the Moon Knight. And hopefully for Phases of the Moon Knight, issue 1. I don't believe we have a feedback thread for issue 8. If we do, I apologise, and again, we will bring that into whatever episode we do together. I had a quick look for it. I didn't see one. I think it's a really strong issue to sort of tie everything up. We've done with Blood Hunt now. We've got our gang together. We we didn't have Wrecker in there because we kind of already dealt with what he was doing. We have an intriguing new setup. We still haven't had an explanation for where the new outfit came from or why the new outfit. Maybe we'll get that. I love that we know Reese and Soldier a bit more now. I love that April finally got his praise. It's kind of exciting to have KHONSHU back, right? I mean, we've not had him for so long, like for this entire run, really, except for a couple of brief moments. So that's kind of exciting, and we'll see where we go. I would score this one an 8. No, it doesn't have the Greer mark, kissy hug, but it's very satisfying and ends with a moment of actual cliffhanger for me, like an actual moment of intrigue. So please let us know what you feel about it. Please give us your views about Phase of the Moon Knight 1. Hopefully me and Ray will get together soon, and we will go through all of that, get his views of 7 and 8, go into 9, and Phase of the Moon Knight, which I'm really excited to read. I've not read it yet because it comes mail order, so I should get it in the next week. And please stay in touch. And I'm sorry this is a solo one, so it feels like you're getting a little bit less speculation and banter. But hopefully this at least catches us up if you wanted some Moon Knight content. And take care. All right, bye.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.